Hey guys, what is up? Welcome to Philly Talk with MK. It's your boy MK. I have a very special guest. He should be here any minute. He has some technical issues, but his name is Jon Johnson from uh, Sports Radio 94 WIP. And we're going to be talking about the Sixers today and the whole James Harden thing, everything going on in that nature. So it's going to be fun, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're just waiting for him right now. Technical difficulties. He just messaged me. Oh, let's see. Here he is.
There we go. Hear me all right?
Hey, how's it going, man?
How you doing, man? You hear me all right now?
Yeah, we're good.
There we go. Yeah, I was having some PC issues, but we're all good now.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. A lot of people use the phone, so you're not the only one. So, how you doing? Great Super Bowl last night, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, it was, it wasn't the best Super Bowl, but I tell you what, I was heavily rooting for the Bengals. But, it came down to the end. I mean, the Bengals had every opportunity. To get to the playoffs for the first time, or to win a playoff game for the first time in 30 years and go as deep as they did. I mean, they lost to a team who put it all in for the one season alone. It was an entertaining Super Bowl. It wasn't the best, but, I was rooting for the Bengals. But either way, Super Bowl is always something special.
Yeah. How about that halftime show, though?
I was good. I went into it because the problem is especially if you're going to go to a concert that's R&B or rap, generally it stinks. It's horrible because it's used to be it's supposed to be in a studio. When you do it in an arena or at a stadium, that you're forced to yell everything. But I was very impressed with how they were able to pull it off the way that they did. I had horrible expectations and I was very surprised.
Yeah. I mean, it was good. It was great. I loved it.
Yeah.
So, we're just going to be talking about the Sixers, the whole James Harden thing, Joel Embiid and stuff in that nature. So, It's actually a personal question from me. How did you get to be on Sports Radio W94 WIP?
Yeah,
What is it like? Do you have any advice for people who are trying to make it into the radio?
Well, it is, where do I begin? So, what I can tell you is it's very difficult. It's very cutthroat. It is, it's 50,000 people for one job at a time. So you always have to try to stand out above the rest and be different than the rest. It's far more than you realize that it's far more than what you know. You can be the smartest person when it comes to a particular subject, any sport, any team. And it won't mean anything if you can't be entertaining, especially when it comes to doing a show. Like you find out over time, because I've been at WIP for 17 years now, and
wow.
You find out, some of the people that you've worked with in the past, they don't know a thing about sports. I mean, you could, you when you have conversations with them, you question whether I ever watched a game, but they can be entertaining on the air and sound like they know what they're talking about. And it's kind of a reality you don't realize. For me, when I got into WIP, I went to Temple, and I did stuff for their radio station, and I interned at WIP, and I was able to get in the door as a producer overnights on the weekend, and I did it here and there, and I did some stuff, some stringer work for WFAN in New York and a couple other smaller stations, and then time goes by, you connect with people, and then if you're fortunate enough, opportunities present themselves, and you have to jump right on them when they do. And be one thing I've learned is that sometimes if you really want something badly and you're showing the effort and you're putting in the work, and you hear people say you sound good, but it doesn't seem like you're getting the acknowledgement, sometimes it's good to be like the jerk and be annoying and say, hey, I'm here. Hello. Just give me a shift. You'll shut me up. Just give me something. And you'll find sometimes, a boss will just give you something just to shut you up. And if you can take advantage of that moment, you never know where it can take you. And your best, it's funny, it's really a sports saying in all matters, but your best ability in your early years, your best ability is availability. Like, be available for
Mm-hmm.
everything. Like, nobody wants to work late on a Saturday night or late on a Friday night, but when those are the opportunities, that's what you got to do. I mean, you got to make the most of it, accept for what it is, and you'll realize too that, especially in the early going, you're not going to make a lot of money. You'll barely make enough if you want to live on your own. You won't even make enough to do that. So you'll have to have multiple jobs and just kind of accept it the way that it is. My experience, a lot of people that have come and gone out of the industry, they expect to come right in, make a ton of money, and then they'll be good. And when it doesn't happen, they get frustrated, and then they ended up finding a standard 9 to 5 job, and they end up leaving the industry entirely, which is, after all that work, you just walk away like that. So it's very tough. There's a lot of ups and downs, but I mean, if once you're in the groove and you find that niche for yourself, it's I mean, it's talking sports. I mean, how can I complain?
Right. I mean, people just talk sports about the sports all the time. You have people
Mhm.
like me who just talk about Sixers, Eagles, all this stuff. So you just got to make yourself known, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's as much about networking, really, to your point. Yeah, it's meeting people. Like, you'll find in the industry, there's some people who are related to somebody else, and that's how they get in the door. And then there are those in a category which I fit into, and several others, that you don't know anybody. I mean, you don't have a family lineage of being in the industry or know anybody that's in the industry. So you meet people, and you get their contact information. You make sure they remember you, and then you get in touch with them every now and then. And sometimes when an opportunity presents itself, those are the people that you will call for recommendations. You're like, hey, I got this opportunity for this job, doing this voiceover stuff, but they really don't know who I am. You know me. Can you put in a good word? And when you make that good relationship, those people will be the ones that'll say, "Oh yeah, John's great. I would highly recommend him. He's reliable, and etc." And you end up getting a gig that way. And then you just you hope to pay it forward down the road. But yeah, yeah. I can't remember what the initial question. What was the initial question? I know I went off on a tangent there.
No, you're good. Just you basically answered it. You
Oh,
basically
okay.
already answered it. The question was right here. You basically answered it. But to get a little more fun and getting into the Sixers, who's your favorite Sixers 76er of all time?
Ooh, of all time, boy, that's a tough one. This is going to sound, boy, it's everybody would say, anybody my age or anybody between the age of 25 and 50 would say AI. That's the easy one. Everybody goes AI.
Right.
The thing is, from my vantage point, because things change, right? When it's funny, you don't realize until you have that, until it happens. Like, it's covering the Sixers for many years, when you step into that locker room for the first time and you see that they are, we put professional athletes on this pedestal. They're godlike in some ways. And then you realize they're human beings. They're just like everybody else. Some are just great all around individuals. Some are just slimy, repulsive people that, the average fan would never get to that viewpoint of them. So because of that, and that's not a slight against AI or anything, but because of that, I think my favorite Sixer, and this is more based on covering them, so it's a different. You look at it differently. Would be T.J. McConnell. Like, I know
Oh,
he's someone who came out, he didn't really have a chance, had to work his rear off to get where he was, and he was very humble about it the whole way. Yet he was a real stone buster. He would tell you the way that it was, and it's something about him. Someone who was never given a chance and was able to turn it into an NBA career. Granted, he'll never be a Hall of Famer, but he's making a comfortable dime. So and maybe because you relate to him on a personal level too. And I see a lot of myself when I see how TJ McConnell got to where he is. So for me, it'd be TJ. As
wow.
odd as
I
that
mean,
is.
he definitely has like that Philadelphia grit, that pound for pound, dime for that loose ball. I mean, I like McConnell, I do, but my
Right.
favorite all time, I gotta go Allen Iverson for me
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I
I
was
mean,
born in
it's
'94. I
yeah.
grew up watching him, trying to emulate his game and stuff like that. But that's basically
Well,
who
like
I have to go with. So I'll have to go with the rest of the crowd.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like I said, it's weird. Like, when you, because I've been doing it for several years now, and when you start covering them on a different level, when you have to kind of separate your fandom in order to do it objectively at times, you start to look at things differently, and then it's difficult to go back to that. So you view players in a different way. I will say this, although T.J. McConnell's one, I'll tell you right now, I put Joel Embiid a really close second. He is, and especially what he's doing right now. I'm seeing where he came from and going through those navicular fractures to where he is now. It's super impressive, and it's hard not to be in all of him at times. He's something.
He really is. My God. It was just like him in high school. He was dribbling down. I don't know if you saw this clip. He was going out of bounds and he threw it back in. And now you see him like doing Euro steps, shooting from three, bringing the ball down. I mean, he really transferred his game. And he started late. I think he started at 16. Am I right?
Yeah. He wanted to be he wanted to play volleyball. He was great at volleyball. And, he loved soccer, but he's just too lanky for soccer. No, it wasn't until Luke Mbamute found him in Cameroon and suggested basketball. And then in a matter of 5 years, he's in the NBA because he's so athletically gifted. And to see where, and I still remember, when he was drafted, he was so immature and he didn't care. His family's all in Cameroon. He's here by himself. So his viewpoint on life was, all right, I'm making a few dollars, but I really don't care about this sport. And when his brother was tragically killed, he questioned playing ever again. And he was just, he could care less about basketball. And then eventually, this reality hit him. And watching him during the lean years, when he was recovering from that second navicular fracture, he was, I remember watching before each and every game, about 3 hours before the game, he would be on the court with Brett Brown at the time. And they'd be working on just his game. And I remember sitting there saying, holy crap, if this guy ever can stay healthy, he's going to be one hell of a basketball player. And I'm patting myself on the back, but it was thinking back on that now and seeing what he's become. I mean, he's become the modern day Wilt Chamberlain. It's incredible.
It really is, yeah. I mean, there's nothing else left to say. I mean, he's easily the best center in the league. You think, or is Jokic like right there?
I mean, Jokic is. You'd be playing. I'd be a homer if I just didn't acknowledge Jokic. Jokic is an incredible talent, but right now, in this season, Joel Embiid is hands down the MVP as long as he doesn't miss a considerable amount of games in what's left. Where they play 55, 56 games. Now, what he's doing, the stat lines that he is consistently putting up over the minutes he's playing per night, no big man, modern day big man, has ever done. When you look back at averaging 32, 33 minutes, Shaq never put up these numbers over 33 minutes a game in a season. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You have to go back to Wilt Chamberlain. And it's a completely different game, so it's impossible to compare Wilt to now. What Joel Embiid is doing, I hope everybody is taking it in because it is it's history that we're watching.
It really is. I mean, people are still taking this for granted, and I'm like, you can't do that. I mean, you just can't. So we got to get into the big guy. James Harden is now a Philadelphia 76er. What is your thoughts about that trade? And did we give up too much, and we're going to miss Curry and Drummond?
All right, so I'll start with, I'll just get into it right in. No, we didn't give up too much. When you lose, of course you lose. You have to give up something in order to get something. And it's very easy to say, oh, here's all the players we don't want. Now give us the player we want. It doesn't work that way. There has to be that proper exchange. Andre Drummond is a backup center. Sure, when you have Joel Embiid and you wonder if he's going to miss 20 games, it's good to have Andre Drummond. But Drummond was never going to be here long-term anyway. Once the season was over, he wanted to parlay this into another starting gig elsewhere. And the buyout market's coming. So you'll be able to find a backup center, and Paul Millsap will temporarily fill that void as best he can for a period of a couple of weeks. Seth Curry, it stinks. I mean, he's your perimeter threat. You need him more than anything. He had flaws too. Like if he wasn't hitting his shots, he was an absolute liability out there because he can't play defense to save his life. So to lose them stinks, and then you got those 2 first-round drafts. We're sure whatever. I mean, the one next year will be in the late 20s. The one in 2027, who cares?
Right.
But I mean, this is what you did all this for, to have that opportunity to get a player like James Harden, to tag him with Joel Embiid. I mean, Ben Simmons screwed himself, but James Harden he's not perfect, right? We know this. He forced his way out of 2 NBA cities, so he's far from a perfect individual. But his skill set on the floor, the rapport he can have with Embiid, they're a perfect match. He's a 3-time scoring champ, a former MVP. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. There's a chance he could go down as a top 25 player all time in the league. And to think about the possibilities, even if it's over this season and next season before Harden's body just falls off a cliff. I mean, this is what you did it for. We've gone through enough to keep kicking the can down the road and hoping. And the most important thing of all, we know the history of Joel Embiid in terms of getting hurt every year. Even when they try their hardest, he finds, his body can't take the rigors of a full season. So you have to make the most of this opportunity right now where he's the best version of himself. Because a man that size with the style of play, history says he's not going to have a career into his mid-30s. So in my opinion, this is his window, and you do everything you can to capitalize in on it. And to acquire a guy like James Harden, I mean, the roster is not perfect, but to have those two together, my goodness, it's exciting times ahead.
Now, would you compare that to Kobe and Shaq? Would you go that far?
No. I mean, I'm trying to think. Who was it? It was Kendrick Perkins who recently said that on ESPN. Yeah,
right.
No. It's great to say it in jest and kind of have fun with it, and and to say, all right, well, this I can see the relatability, but you're also insulting, just the most dominant big man of our time paired with the late Kobe Bryant and what they were accomplished together. Sure, in a pipe dream, you can see that possibility, but no, you need we need a track record of the two of them together before we can start making those comparisons.
Right. I mean, I've been seeing it everywhere on the internet. People have been DMing me like the next Kobe and Shaq. I'm like, I need to see them on the court first. Can I see them on the court first together? So that's just how I look at it. Like, I need to see them gameplay and stuff. So
yeah, I mean that's what it is. I know it's great, from a fan point of view to think about what could be. I mean that's the best part about being a fan, especially when you acquire somebody like this. Sure, it's possible, but let me see the rest of the season together and then see what that rapport could be like. And if these are two players who are very ball dominant, let's see if they can come to that proper balance and incorporate everybody else, and then we'll go from there. But either way, I mean this opportunities like this come around, once every 20 years, and you have to have the guts to take advantage. And I've been critical of Daryl Morey, but I give him a ton of credit for going all in and getting Harden.
Right. So having James Harden on the Sixers, is that going to hurt Joel Embiid's chances because he's not getting the ball all the time? He's not working with it 24/7. Is that going to hurt his chances?
I mean, right now, having not seen the two of them together, I don't think it will. I know it's easy to say, yeah, he's not going to have, like you said, that many opportunities. He won't be scoring as much because Harden's going to be scoring too. I think it actually increases his chances because he's not going to have to work as hard for buckets a lot of the time. The issue with the Sixers has always been spacing. They've been dying to get a point guard who can create their own shot off the dribble for years. And this is the first opportunity they've had, and he's a future Hall of Famer. So as long as Harden, being in Philadelphia, knows, even though he's James Harden, this is Joel Embiid's team, they're going to get along wonderfully. And the spacing will be great because no longer will Embiid have to do everything that we've seen him do this whole season, where he has to orchestrate everything. Not only is he the big man, but he's got to run the offense. He's got to, tell everybody where to be. He's got to be on both sides of the floor. He has to be the best player on both sides of the floor. So it takes such a toll on your body that you're exhausted after you play 32 to 34 minutes. And when you're given the ball on offense, you're immediately double teamed because no one else is a serious threat late in a game. To have Harden out there, the whole double team thing goes out the window. Now, when they do that, they're leaving Harden or somebody else completely wide open. And that's one of the great things about Tyrese Maxey coming into his own in only his second season. This is right now, I think this will increase Joel's chances of winning MVP because his buckets will not be as hard to get.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's not going to be hard to get, but it's just like he needs the ball in his hands, Harden, I feel like. Sure, he's going to get double-doubles. He's going to get 10.5 assists per game. He's going to average like 25, 26. Joel Embiid is probably going to lose that highest points per game a little bit. It might die down a little bit, in my opinion, but he can still win it.
No, it's good. I mean, it's possible his points per game may drop a little, and I know right now he still leads the league in it. I mean, all this stuff is we're about to find out, and that's what makes it so much fun. I mean, I don't think it'll hurt Joel, because here's the thing with Harden. Although he's played with many great players, to some success, others been a catastrophic failure. He's never played with a big man with the skill set Joel Embiid has. He's used to giving it to big guys in the dunker spot or in the low post, and that's it. Joel can, whether it's the elbow, the baseline, the top of the key, Joel can shoot from anywhere. So the possibilities of this relationship with two guys who can create their own shot, it's fantasy stuff. It's stuff that you would play in video games.
Yeah, it really is. Really is. In the beginning, I wanted Bradley Beal because he can score, he can spot up and everything, but now he's out for the year. So with Daryl Morey, you kind of knew that he was going to pick James Harden. Like, if he has a target on somebody, he's going to get that guy. Like, it's pretty self-explanatory. I called this before even last year, before even that Harden-Ben Simmons trade went down the first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's always been he's always had a love affair with James Harden. Yeah. I mean, he's always wanted him, and obviously he's now got him. I wanted Bradley Beal too. He's much younger. There are some question marks because he's never really been, pushed in a playoff situation under that pressure in Washington yet. But yeah, losing him for the year, it's a shame because we still don't know what his future is, whether he's going to want out come the start of next season. And then there's Damian Lillard out in Portland, and they've convinced Damian Lillard, just wait, we're going to get you that guy here next season. Everything's going to be fine. And he doesn't want to leave Portland unless he has to. So they've convinced him for another offseason. It's a shame because, I mean, who the hell wants to go to Portland?
Right. It's exciting. We won the trade keeping Maxey and Thibault. I mean, that's just incredible. I thought we were going to give up Thibault. I really did. Mm-hmm. I knew we already said no to Maxey, like that was untouchable. But the fact that we kept him, that's music to my ears. Like, I love it.
That's what makes the trade all the more impressive. When the trade officially went down, and I got a quick text message from somebody within the Sixers saying it had happened, and it gave me the details. As I was reading it, I was expecting to see one of those two names, either Maxey or Thibault, involved in the trade, and I'm blown away that neither are. To give up your backup center who wouldn't be here next year anyway, and you got to give up something in order to get something. So you give up Curry, those 2 draft picks. I was blown away by that. I mean, I know no one wanted to trade Maxey. I would have been willing to go over the top if it was necessary. I'm glad it didn't. And Thibault, here's the thing that's going to be interesting about Thibault. Although he lacks a lot offensively, when you get into the playoffs, I mean, he's your best defender. I mean, other than Embiid, in terms of covering the 1 through 3 or even 1 through 4, that's what Thibault's job is going to be. Whoever the best player in the other team is, if it's not a big man, that's going to be his job. If you didn't have him, I don't know who would be doing the guarding.
Right. I mean, we definitely need Thibault. Danny Green is there for the defense, but when it comes to Thibault, he was on all defensive second team his second year. Like, that's music to my ears again. And what is Tobias Harris's role now with James Harden on the roster? Because I feel like his role is going to deplenish a little bit.
Yeah, well, and that's a good thing. I mean, it's a shame. Tobias Harris, in my time covering him, like pre-pandemic when we could go in the locker room and have conversations, he's one of the most professional guys I've ever met. Like, he gets his role. He wants to be great. He wants to be a leader. He wants to be the go-to guy. He's just not. He doesn't have the skill set that he thinks he has, and he's trying to be, but it's not him. So to be the third option now is a huge. It should be of great relief to him. I know he's relieved he wasn't traded by this deadline, so I'm assuming you'll get a much more relaxed Tobias Harris moving forward, which could result in a better field goal percentage, and maybe at times he'll get more aggressive and try to take it to the rack because he's that third star now. Maybe he wants his name in the limelight again. I'm not sure. like I said, we haven't been able to talk to them face to face to see how they feel about everything. But when you sign that $180 million contract, no one would say no to that. But the expectations come with it. I mean, the moment you sign, it doesn't matter. I mean, you're taking up a lot of that salary room on the roster, so there's a lot of expectations. And sadly, this is what he is. But to have him as a third option, if I can ignore the contract for the rest of the season, I have no problem with that at all.
Yeah, I really thought Tobias was going to be gone because after when he had, the virus and everything, his game went down. Yeah. It took a little while to get back up, but Philly fans that are like, you got to trade him now, trade him now. Do you still think he'll be on the team after this season?
I would be willing to bet anything Daryl Morey is going to try to trade him because of the amount of money he is using up. If he was making 15 to 20 million, he'd be on the roster for the length of his contract. But the fact that it's the escalating deal, was he 33 this year, 36 next year, 37 after that, it uses up so much room. And if you want to put the best possible roster together while you can, when you have Joel and you have Harden, I mean, Tobias Harris hampers all of that. I mean, you can find somebody else making half his amount that can do what he can do. So the good thing is, it's funny, I was having a conversation recently with a former NBA GM about how do you dump that contract? I mean, who would want that? And it was described to me, in the offseason, it's a lot easier because teams can go over that salary cap in the offseason and they just have to get under it by the start of the next season. So there's a lot more wiggle room. You can't just, if somebody acquires him now and you're over the cap, it's like, oh, crap, now we got to pay the soft cap right now. But in the offseason, it gives you more time. So if I had to put a percentage on it, I'd say about a 70% chance he does get traded in the offseason. I mean, Daryl Morey has always been super aggressive, and he's well aware of this window that he's in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Tobias is not worth that contract at all. Last year, he was basically an all-star, borderline all-star. I call him an all-star. Mm-hmm. His season from last year to this year really flopped. I'm like, what has gotten in his brain about that? Like, Is it the fans? Is it the team not gelling well? Like, I wonder what it is that got Tobias Harris to play not like himself.
Well, he's opened up recently about not saying I'm not myself because of this, but he's been giving like these clues. It's very clear that things get to him. Like when his name was in the trade conversations and he'd have a horrible game, he'd comment after the game, "Oh, it's just hard to concentrate tonight with my name and all this stuff." I mean, it's an excuse, but it's clear between that and the time he was booed, and he told the fans to shut the bleep up when they cheered at the end of that game a couple weeks back. That stuff does get to him, and if you're a GM or even a coach, that drives you nuts because you're playing in an arena. You're a professional athlete. If you're paying attention to what fans are saying, then you're not into the game enough. So focus is clearly an issue for Tobias Harris at times. If he's struggling, he's listening to what people are saying about him.
Yeah, that's what happened with Ben Simmons. I mean, I don't want Tobias Harris to go down that far. I don't.
No, I don't think he will. Ben is a whole level of prima donna. I mean, he is he's in a category all to himself.
Mm-hmm. So I just have to ask this since we're talking about him. How happy are you that he's gone?
Very, very.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to be when he was brought to town after he was drafted, and the Sixers still practiced at PCOM, which is on City Line Avenue, before they had their new facility. I was fortunate enough because they went around the room to different media outlets so he could be interviewed, and I was fortunate to be the very first person to interview him. And it's funny, you knew something was different about him, but you couldn't pinpoint it. But as his career has progressed, I guess the first couple of seasons, you find there's a whole different arrogance to him that I haven't seen in most athletes. He lives in this fantasy world, and he's surrounded by people who they're not bad people, but they block out any negative thoughts, and they just keep feeding him, driving his ego. So therefore, he never was accepting criticism, whether it was from a coach, media, fans, etc. And he was always taught, you're the best, no matter what, you're the best. Look, you got this massive contract. You got this Nike deal. Don't listen to anybody. You're the best. And these are the people around him 24 hours a day. So when all this stuff happened and he was reluctant to change his game, and it started to affect, the Sixers when he was unwilling to shoot. There was always the conversation, can he, is he just afraid? Is he unwilling? What's going on there? I used to watch countless practices or well before the game when the coaching staff would work with him, to improve his shooting or get him to be a willing shooter, whether it was Brett Brown or Billy Lang or Sam Cassell last year. They would spend hours with him trying to put up shots and adjust his form to make him shoot better. And through all, 4 years I watched, 5 years, 4 years, whatever it was, he would always flare out his elbow on his shooting arm. And that was like the big no-no. It's like the 101 stuff you learn when you first play basketball. And I remember the coaches would say, Ben, elbow, and they'd start gently and it would get louder. And he would roll his eyes at them. And, you got your elbow tilted at an angle, so that way your wrist is cocked to the side, your thumb placement's wrong. So therefore the rotation of the ball comes out wrong. And you're getting a lot of clangs left and right. And you're not hitting where you're supposed to hit. It's like 101 mistakes. But he did not want to change. He was hell-bent on making it work his way. And you add that with, at a certain point, because he's been pampered a certain way, and the Sixers helped instill that, which I think was a big mistake. And you saw it from Brett Brown. You saw it last year with Doc Rivers calling him a treasure. They tried to ease him into, don't worry, he'll come around eventually. And it got to the point where Ben's like, this is what I am. You take it or leave it. And at a certain point, there was a fear of failure because he would clang off, shots in a game. But he was just so damn stubborn about it. And there's so many things that I could share. Maybe I'll do it, many years from now, about him, that he he did not make it easy on his teammates and his coaching staff throughout his Sixers tenure. Like, I'll give you one quick example. There was a time where in late December, the Disney on Ice road trip, which both the Sixers and Flyers go on, where they go out west for X amount of games and they come back in the new year. Well, Ben didn't want to fly with the team. He wanted to meet up with some family members and friends in LA, meet up with his girlfriend. And the organization said, all right, fine, you can just meet us in the cities where we're playing as opposed to flying with the team. Coaches hate that. Long road trips, head coaches absolutely love, especially when it's a team that hasn't played together for a long time, because this is where there's no more distractions. There's no wives, girlfriends, kids, friends, family members. It's just you and the team. You hang out together. You go to dinner together. You go out, late at night if the coach allows you together. You do that together, and you build a different bond, a different chemistry. And Ben never did that because he hung out with his own grouping of people. And he would fly and meet the team in the cities where they played at times. And it instilled this, I'm Ben Simmons and those are the Sixers and I'm the focal point. And when it became official that it was Joel Embiid's team, and I think for Ben, the breaking point beyond what happened in Game 7 against the Hawks was when he saw the footage of Daryl Morey playing doubles tennis with Joel Embiid at Drexel University. And then he knew it wasn't his team anymore. It was Joel Embiid's team, which, that was the breaking point for him. And he's just, I know I'm going on and on here, and I could say so much more, but I'm glad that he's gone. I really am. He did no good for the team. He prevented them from growing. They built the roster to accommodate him, which is why at times they struggle now because he wouldn't shoot. So they would try to custom build the roster to him. And he left them high and dry with that contract. He could have just toughened up and said, I got to get better, forgive me. Anything. He could have said anything. But instead, he decided to say, oh, you're going to criticize me? It's not my team anymore? Get me out of here. I'm going to go somewhere else. And then we went through that fiasco we've been through up until this past Thursday.
Yeah. What really bothers me the most is the mental health thing. He's on Brooklyn now. He's smiling. He's playing basketball. Like, this whole thing was an act, and that's the one thing I can't stand. It's that, his accountability, and his refusal to shoot. Top three.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and again, we always have to be careful with the mental health thing because we have no idea what's going on in somebody's head. But I having said that, and with a disclaimer, I could be wrong. I certainly believe he was faking it the whole time because it's the timeline is too, it's too obvious. It gets to the point where the team's like, all right, you're not going to show up, then we're not going to pay you. Oh, but I've been seeing a mental health expert. All right, well, we need proof. Oh, well, I'm not giving you proof. Like, so we go through that whole timeline, and then he's forced to do it in order to get paid. And then they ended up resulting in fining him anyway because he wouldn't cooperate with them. Yeah, and for those who, suffer with, different issues that make everyday things a struggle, what he did is so insulting and belittling and so over the top ridiculous. I'll never. I mean, putting all the other stuff aside, doing that alone is enough to make me hate you forever.
Yeah, this guy's just scum of the earth. That's all I'm gonna say here.
Yeah, he's
So,
not a good person.
yeah. Is having James Harden on the Philadelphia 76ers going to help Tyrese Maxey in the long run?
Ooh, long run, I'm not sure because it's Harden, and who knows what it'll be like in 2 years. But
Right.
immediately, absolutely. Even if he's shadowing him, which I know he did for the first time today in Harden's first practice with the Sixers. I mean, just shadowing. He's an unbelievable shooter. So for Tyrese Maxey, who has grown leaps and bounds in a single offseason, I'm still baffled at how he's done it. I mean, there's no downside right now. It seems like Harden, again, it's his first day with his teammates, is very open to this whole concept of here's your young up and coming talent on the Sixers. He's going to shadow you. You should, because this kind of stuff happens all the time in professional sports. I mean, I'm trying to remember who it was when TJ McConnell, funny talking about him, he used to shadow JJ Redick at times. When Landry Shamet was drafted, he followed JJ Redick everywhere and learned a lot about him. So it is commonplace in the NBA. And when you can get someone who's a future Hall of Famer like James Harden, anybody who's going to shadow him, you're going to learn a ton. So it's great.
Yeah, definite. So, give me your thoughts on the 76ers bench. To me, they're like inconsistent. Like,
Yeah.
you have one night, Sig Milton's back, he can put up 10. The next night, he could do this. Then you have Korkmaz, who can go like 20 and then 5. Give me your thoughts on your bench.
Yeah, the bench isn't very good. I mean, it's just as you pointed out, it's inconsistent players. It's a lot of the teams in the NBA suffer with this, and the Sixers have lacked a legitimate bench for quite some time. Like you said, Korkmaz can have a great game and then 4 bad ones to follow, and the same thing with anybody else on that bench. I don't even have to go from top to bottom. The buyout market's going to be hugely important for Daryl Morey come the end of the month. This is where, and I think the Sixers are an attractive destination because a lot of these guys will realize that the Sixers need help with shooters. So whether it's a backup big man or some wing players, some shooting guards, they know they will get some playing time with the Sixers, whether they're older players who just want a shot to win a title or someone looking to get their next contract that want to showcase their skills. They'll be able to do so with the Sixers. I guess we can go back to, look what happened in, what's their most recent example with them? 2018, Ersan Ilyasova. I mean, he was huge to them in those 2 playoff series, and he ended up getting a 3-year contract out of it. Marco Bellinelli, who couldn't play a lick of defense, but came up huge offensively at times. He got a contract elsewhere as a result. So the Sixers will be a destination. Yeah, the roster is not perfect. The bench needs a lot of help. Looking around the Eastern Conference anyway, I know everybody's in love with the Heat right now. I'm waiting for them to falter a little bit. Milwaukee is the best example of a full roster. I mean, they have from top to bottom the deepest roster in the entire NBA. Harden and Embiid neutralize a lot of that. And one thing to keep in mind for those who were, and this plays in line with the bench, and those who were upset at losing Andre Drummond and a couple others and whatever else, when you get to the playoffs, your rotations dwindle. You'll play 6, 7 guys, unless it's a blowout, in which case you'll empty the bench. So you have your starters and then 2 more players. That's all you're going to need. because your starters are going to have to play around 40 minutes a game. So it can be overblown.
Mm-hmm. And I was just about to ask you this. Andrew just took the question right out of my mouth. Can you see J.J. Redick coming out of retirement? Because he has been showing hints. He has been showing hints.
I know he misses. It's in his time with the Sixers. I enjoyed covering him immensely because he was a pro, but at the same time brutally honest about everything. Like if you'd ask him a question he didn't like, he'd give it right back to you. But he would also be, respectful about understanding the game. And the relationship he had with Joel it's a shame it ended because there was no one else in the locker room who could call him out, for his antics. But Redick would do it frequently. Will he come out of retirement? He's got that sweet gig with ESPN now. I'm sure he's making. I don't know what his contract is with them, but I'm sure he's making a decent coin. He gets to be close to home at times. He wants to be in Brooklyn. That's where his family is. He doesn't want to leave. That's why Philly was such an easy choice for him, because it's just a short drive away.
Right.
If that, I don't know. Honestly, that's a really good question. I mean, he's not the JJ Redick of even 3 years ago anymore. I mean, his body is finally caught up to him. Father Time never loses. I'd like to see him get another shot. And if, knock on wood, the Sixers are like, hey, you want to come out for, maybe a playoff run and give you a few minutes? I'd have no problem with that at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I actually watched his podcast. Very interesting, his podcast. I don't know if you listen to it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's no, I haven't. I don't catch every episode, but again, I mean, it's funny. Redick seems to be polarizing with some people. Some like him, some hate him. I have no problem with him all. He's just brutally honest. I mean, he likes himself a little bit too much at times, but that's him.
Right. So, give me your thoughts about Doc Rivers, because a lot of people think he's overrated, that he should go with the rotations and stuff. To me, I think he's good for what he's been dealt with, but now with James Harden, I feel like he can really flourish. So, give me your thoughts on Doc Rivers.
To this point, I've been disappointed in him. Having said that, I understand that you can only work with what you have, and you can only put your players in position. And if they don't deliver, I mean, if you're not going to look at the players, of course you're going to blame the coach. I've been very disappointed in Doc Rivers, whether it be his all bench rotation at times, his all bench lineup, which hemorrhages points in critical moments in games, or too slow to remove a player or substitute a player for somebody else. And I think what has bothered me the most about Doc, and again, we can be overly critical of coaches. When the team loses, and there are, of the reasons for their loss, you could point to a couple things. If he's involved, his decisions are involved in that loss, he'll never own it. Ever, 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 ever. He will be quick to blame everybody else but himself. And there was that ultimate one a couple weeks back when they lost to the Clippers, when he was asked about did coaching play a factor in this loss, because Tyronn Lue coached circles around him. And still to this day, you play a zone defense against Doc Rivers, he stares at it for 2 quarters before he tries to make an adjustment. When he pulled the would you ask Pop that question, Greg Popovich, that really rubbed me the wrong way, because it screamed of a coach. I'm Doc Rivers. How dare you ask me that question? I'm an all-time great coach. This is who I am. This is how I coach. How dare you, question my methods? You're just some schmo. That rubbed me the wrong way. When you're not self-evaluating, even at his age, that rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And I don't know how he made that list for coaching. Like, I'm being completely honest, I don't understand that at all.
Yeah, I don't get it either. It makes no sense. Billy Cunningham's not on here, but somehow Doc Rivers is on there. And of course that feeds his ego as well. I mean, Doc Rivers is a good person. Like he wants to do well for, those in certain situations, those of color, those who have struggled. And he's a good person, but as the coach, he drives me up a wall. I have not been impressed.
Yeah, I haven't either. Do you remember when he was coaching? I think it was against Austin Rivers, his son, and he was like, he got him to throw out the game. You remember that?
I don't remember the specific thing, but I mean, anybody who's blown more 3-1 leads than anyone in NBA history, I mean, you can't ignore that. You have to take note of that and say, what am I doing wrong that's causing this? Instead of pulling the, how dare you ask me that question?
Yeah, yeah. So actually, this just came to my head. Give me your thoughts about Paul Millsap. Like the backup center looks like, right? We're gonna have to go a lot of small ball.
Yeah, I I don't know what to expect from Paul Millsap. I mean, he's been in the league forever. You know, he's being asked to play the big man position, you know, back up temporarily. I'm assuming temporarily until they can grab somebody in a buyout market. I if he can survive, if he cannot hemorrhage points, that's a bonus. I mean, he's you know, a part of the trade to make the finances work of it, and my expectations of Paul Millsap are zero right now. You know, anything he can do in a, you know, if he doesn't, like I said, hemorrhage points, I will be thrilled. That's basically all I can expect from him right now.
Yeah, I mean, I remember wasn't there a team that just released him and then broke, like he got traded or something? Like
Yeah,
he's been around so many teams, it's insane.
he's been around. I mean, and there's something to be said about guys like that. It means they're usable. They're just, you know, they're only good for a period of time, and that's you know, Paul Millsap had his time in the sun, and he's hanging on to a career, and he's still useful in the NBA on if he fills a specific role in a roster, and you know, we'll see what that role is for the Sixers. I don't know how many minutes he'll get, how they're going to make it work. There's so much up in the air right now. But again, that's kind of what makes it exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So B-Ball Paul is doing well. I wish he can get more minutes with Isaiah Joe. You agree on that?
Yeah. I mean, here's the problem though. The Sixers are trying to win a title. And for those two players in particular, you know they have tremendous raw talent. The only way to get them to grow and become better is to give them more playing time. And on a roster like this, I shouldn't say a roster like this, but an organization in this situation where they're in a win now mode, it just doesn't work for them. I mean, the only considerable playing time they get together, if it's not the all reserve lineup for, you know, brief period in time, it's garbage time in a game. And it's unfortunate because when I see guys like that, you're like, wow, they're best suited on another roster that's like a team that's up and coming. They'll play every single day. They'll get 30 to 35 minutes a game. I don't know what their future is going to hold with the Sixers. I wish they could get more time. And the G League, it's an immense difference in talent between the G League and the NBA. So even if, like, you know, if they're playing every day in the G League, I don't know how much good it would do them because you can't compare that to anyone in the NBA.
Yeah, you can, but the G League has changed. Like, it has changed a lot. And the players are only getting better. You have, like, Dwayne Wade's son, for example, going into the league, which I think was too early for that. But G League's getting more competitive, and we just got to see how it pans out. So, just give me your starting five for the Philadelphia 76ers.
Well, I mean, the starting five will, you know, Maxi's going to be in the starting five alongside James Harden. Of course, you have Embiid, you have Tobias Harris, and I know they're going to end up starting Danny Green. I know they are, but I would start Matisse Thybulle. Danny Green's so much better served off the bench than starting, but Matisse Thybulle is such a liability offensively. I mean, you end up playing 4-on-5 for stretches as a result. It's still not perfect, but you know that. I mean, you know, insert. So what did I say? So it'll be James Harden, Max. It'll be Harden, Maxey, probably Green, Tobias, and of course Joel.
Now, I would put James Harden at the 2 and let Maxey be at the 1 because the 2 is actually his natural position, Harden. So I feel like go like that, but in today's NBA, everyone goes like.
Yeah, I mean, either way. I mean, regardless of whatever you label the position, whether it's your 2 or your 1, I mean, Harden's going to be bringing the ball up the court 95% of the time now. So, yeah, I mean, Maxey's going to have to, and he's developed. Maxey's more of a combo guard that was being forced to play point guard and bring the ball up the court most of the time. And the fact that you'll be able to interchange him when he wants, you know, when he has that opportunity, he'll take it down the lane in one of those quasi floater layup, undefinable shots that Maxey has, or whether he's just lined up for a catch and shoot. I mean, I think this edition of Harden will only make Maxey better.
Yeah, it's just like insane. Now we're like, are we like one of the top teams in the NBA? Like top two, top? Where would you rank the Sixers?
In the Eastern Conference, if I'm going to go by that, because Milwaukee's one. Milwaukee is one. They are the deepest team, the defending champs. They know what it takes. They can turn it on when they want to, they're going to be difficult to stop. I would put the Sixers right underneath them. I really would, even though they have a flawed roster. I can look at the standing.
You're breaking up. I can't hear you. Yeah, you're muted. I can't hear you. Yeah. All right, guys. So we had some technical difficulties. He'll come right back. But hey, I don't know where I would put the Sixers. I think I would put them as like a number. Let's see. You got the Bucks, Bulls. You do have the Nets, but the Nets are like down there. So you got the Bucks, Bulls, Sixers. That device not connected. It's gotta be connected. So for me, you still got. I need to look at the rankings, like standings. I might pull that up. Yeah, let me pull that up. Hey, John, if you can hear me, device is not connected for you. Let's see here. I'm gonna pull up the rankings real quick of the Eastern Conference. So standings. So right now you got the Heat, Bulls, Cavs, Bucks, Sixers, Celtics, Raptors, Nets, then Hornets, Hawks. So there we go. All right.
There we go. Sorry about that. I was using my phone.
Fine.
The moment
You're good.
I get multiple text messages or phone calls, it disconnects.
Right.
I've
been there, done that.
But where they rank? Like I said, I got
so
Milwaukee
we're ranked
second.
5 right now. So the Heat are 1, Bulls 2, Cavs, Bucks, Sixers, Celtics, Raptors, Nets.
Yeah. I know many would put the Heat above the Sixers. Eric Spoelstra's one hell of a coach, but I'm waiting for. I know they're going to fade a little bit in the second half. The Cavs, no, they're young, they're up and coming. They got some guys that came back from the dead that are helping them out. But I have the Bucks, and then I have the Sixers right underneath them. And again, we're still 2 months away from the playoffs really getting underway. So a lot can happen between now and then. And rosters will change a little bit more with that buyout market. But assuming that rapport works out, that chemistry, I think it will, between Joel and James Harden, I got the Bucks, and then I got the Sixers right on their heels. I don't know what it'll amount to this season, but I would certainly expect at this point in time, assuming they're both healthy, a conference finals appearance.
Yeah, we actually destroyed the Cavs. Like, without James Harden, Embiid was there. Embiid got a 40-point triple-double. Like, this team is something you can't mess with. You can't overlook. It's like a roadblock right there. You just got to play them and see if you can beat us. Now, to me, it's one of the teams right there. It's the Bulls. I know they have been having a lot of injuries, Zach LaVine, Ball, Patrick Williams, all that stuff. Do you see the Bulls creeping up or not really?
The Bulls, maybe. I mean, they have they have a lot of talent. The way I look at the Sixers with the way Embiid is playing, and that's what it all comes down to. How is Joel Embiid playing? We are watching something for the ages that we haven't experienced before. And you brought up that 40-point triple-double he had the other night, and he's only the second Sixer to have a 40-point triple-double, and the other one was Wilt. And to do it in the amount of minutes that he is doing, by the way, he is the only other player in NBA history to have a 40-point triple-double in under 34 minutes. The only other player to do it other than Joel was James Harden back in 2019. So it seems like the stars are aligning for this team, and unless there is an opponent that can completely take away Joel Embiid, I would not bet against them.
Yeah. So can't wait to you guys. Can't wait to play you all in March again. He's a Suns fan. So how do you feel the Sixers can go up against a team like the Suns?
Oof. Right now, not very well. I mean, the Suns are. They should win. I mean, I don't want to say they should win the title this year, but my God, they're good. They're so good, and what Devin Booker has grown into is. I never expected it to be this good. I'm curious who they may add to their roster just for a little extra depth coming up if they add anybody. Well, I'll put it this way: I have the Suns winning the title. So I right now I don't see anybody beating them. I really don't.
Okay. I mean, I had the Suns winning them too against the Miami Heat in the finals, and then Warriors getting bounced in the conference finals. So it's great for the Suns. It really is. I mean, going from where they are now to getting here, getting Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, that's a true rebuild in itself. That is.
Oh God, yeah. And Mikal Bridges. I mean, the Sixers for 30 minutes before getting traded. I remember, draft night at the team facility. You know, his mother worked for the Sixers at the time, and when she found out her son got drafted, she was just so elated and crying. And then 30 minutes later, finding out her son gets traded, and the Sixers end up taking Zaire Smith. But he's grown into one heck of a player as well. I'm happy for him. Yeah, the Suns are a fun team to watch, and for a city that hasn't had a whole lot to cheer about for a while. I mean, let me think. The Cardinals, they had their moment not that long ago. They're up and coming, but they're having issues with Kyler Murray. Their hockey team is just nobody cares. I mean, the baseball team, whatever. Yeah, all they have. I mean, their lone hope for excitement and happiness right now is the Suns.
I know. When does the buyout market happen? Later in the month, right?
I'm trying to remember the exact date. I think it's like March 1st or 2nd.
I'll look it up real quick. I'm actually curious.
Yeah, it's the first few days of March when, like, the buyout, when teams have to make a potential playoff roster official with the league. I think it's in the final days of February, the first days of March. There's like a 7 to 10 day span where all of it will happen.
Yeah. I'm still looking up here. Give me one sec. I think you're right. It's in March. Yeah, it's in March. Like later on in March. So, I mean, we got to go after a big, in my opinion. If we go after like a good bench piece, like a small forward or something, I'll be more than happy with. Like, we need some depth here.
I mean, you can grab, there will be big men available. And when the playoffs come, that big man's going to get, I don't know, 5 to 8 minutes of playing time in theory. So it's as long as he's adequate, that's all that matters. But if there are wing players that you know can shoot, forget defense. If they can shoot and you know that if they're hot, they can carry a team for a quarter, see if you can acquire those guys. See if they'd be interested in coming to the Sixers. Because those are the type of players you want. Just stack the bench with limitless shooters.
Yeah. Eric Gordon. I would love to Eric Gordon. That would be a good pickup as well. DeMarcus Cousins, I mean, that would be a nice backup, but his attitude just questions me.
Yeah, there are some guys, like even like Dwight Howard had, he had 3 quarters of the season with the Sixers last year. It was entertaining. He had turned back the clock, and then the playoffs hit, and that immaturity kicks back in, even at his age. He can't control himself. He gets into foul trouble. He puts his team in a horrible position. That's where you got to be delicate. You don't want to bring in someone that has an ego. You already have James Harden. You have Joel Embiid. This is his team. He's finding himself, in terms of his leadership skills now. So he's not going to be very tolerant of someone who's going to have an attitude either.
Yeah, he's not anything special or flashy. Cody Zeller will be a good, I guess, but not a lot of good big centers left in the bio market, I think.
No, and again, they're backup centers, right? I mean, there's a reason they're backups. So, I mean, when you have Joel Embiid, anybody is a massive downgrade where, if you look at 3/4 of the teams in the NBA, I mean, they're full of guys like Cody Zeller or that are a degree better or a degree worse. So it's the big man's a lost position in the league. So whatever you can grab just to fill that void for a couple of minutes, that's all that matters.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if only he fixes rotations, we get right players. I'm fine with it. Like, I don't feel comfortable with Shake Milton. How do you feel about Shake Milton?
Shake's interesting. He, when he finally got that playing time last year, 2 years ago, under Brett Brown, where they had told him, listen, you're not getting any playing time. I advise, you just hang tight and we'll probably end up trading you at some point. And through a series of injuries, he ended up getting playing time. I guess it was that West Coast trip, and it was the Clippers game, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Where he scored 30-some points and ended up getting consistent playing time, more or less the rest of the season. And, fast forward in time 2 years now. I fear this is what he is. I mean, he's got his moments where he can put up 10 to 20 points for you, and other times you're like, what are you doing out there? I mean, you're very lackadaisical. Your focus isn't there. You're costing your team possessions. I wish I could pinpoint exactly what it was. I feel like it all has to do with focus, and the fact that a couple of years have gone by now and we're still dealing with this. This may be what he is, but again, it goes back to a conversation we had earlier. Everybody matures at different times. It's no different than everyday life where you have, you look at people around you, family members, friends. Some people are, you may know someone that's 20 years old and has, is so knowledgeable and mature beyond their years. And then you got a friend or family member who's in their 40s that acts like they're a teenager still. So like that's always a balancing act that coaches and GMs have. If you have an immature player, can you see in the not too distant future them maturing and growing their own and realizing their situation? Or are they always going to be like this? In which case, you at some point just move on.
Mm-hmm. And last final question: your keys to victory for against the Celtics?
Oof. Joel Embiid loves playing the Celtics, so the Celtics aren't what they once were. It's amazing. I mean, the battles the Sixers had with the Celtics as to who was going to be the next great team, and both ended up falling short. But the Sixers obviously still have that chance where the Celtics are trying to find themselves still. I mean, basically what they've done all year up until this point, up until we see James Harden take the floor, give it to Embiid, let him figure it out. If he's red hot, keep feeding him the ball. He'll find the open players. Tyrese Maxey has been tremendous. He's having 3 good games to 1 bad game for a second-year player. I mean, you can't ask for anything more than that. I'd run everything through Joel and then go from there. And that's where you have to rely on coaching when things start to fall apart. Make the proper rotational adjustments. Please stop with the all-reserve line. I'll tell you, when James Harden takes the floor for the first time as a Sixer, now that he's going to be on the roster, if Doc Rivers, with those 2 players, decides to run an all-reserve lineup, he should be taken out of the arena in handcuffs. There is no way that you should not, through stretches of the second, third quarter, stagger their minutes in order to prevent something like that. I mean, that would tell me everything I need to know about Doc Rivers. But no, I mean, for the time being, for Celtics, it's status quo. It's give the ball to Joel, let him figure it out.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, they don't have anyone. They have Al Horford, who was known as the Embiid stopper in the beginning. Now he's like old and slow. I don't think he can do it.
Yeah, and this is a different Joel Embiid as well. I mean, like we said, there's a whole new focus to Embiid now. He's a lot more aggressive than before. He has spoke. And the thing about Joel, the moment of maturity for Joel, it's very clear. He remarked about it briefly before the birth of his son. When he had a child for the first time, it gave him a new viewpoint on things, and he ended up speaking at length about, how will my son, if somebody asks my son about his dad's career, what will he say? If he looks at film of his dad playing, what will he see? So it's given him this whole new drive to be dominant, to be one of the best big men ever, because he wants his legacy, his son, to see him as, holy cow, my dad was the greatest big man in the modern day NBA and, one of the 2 greatest big men in Sixers history. So this has given him a whole new focus. And Joel's a different type of person to begin with. He's not a partier. He's not, hey, we're going out tonight. You want to go? No, I'm good. He plays the game. He goes home. He plays with his son, kisses his fiance, and he plays video games for 4 hours. That's Joel. He's not a guy that goes out. So that's a good thing for someone at this position, at this point in his career. And the opportunity that's in front of him right now, I mean, this is the best focus you could have.
Right. And last thing, Curry and Drummond must be mad at Ben. I'm like, you think? They had a good thing going for the Sixers.
Yeah. Boy, I hope he has something he plans on saying to them. I mean, Drummond's whatever. I mean, he never even got to really play with Drummond, but Seth Curry, that's a whole nother thing. And every player on the Nets is going to be asking Seth Curry, what's Ben really like? What were the issues with Ben? How did it get to this point? And unless Ben has like that honest conversation with Seth, why wouldn't Seth open up and explain exactly what was going on with Ben? But from what I understand about Ben over the last 5 years, I expect Ben to apologize to no one and say, this is who I am. Things didn't work out there. Let's win here.
So I just want to say thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. I mean, just fun talking about Sixers with a lot of people. So I really appreciate you coming on. And I'm sure the people in here loved having you on as well.
No problem at all. No, listen, I pinch myself every day. It's a long time to get here, but the fact that I get to talk sports for a living, I would do it 24 hours a day if I could.
Yeah. So thank you. Maybe I can have you on again to talk about Sixers. I mean, I would love to have you on again.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thanks for having me.
Yep. I'll talk to you later. Thank you. All right, guys. There you have it. What a great guy. Very intelligent. He knows his stuff. A very good conversation. I mean, Jerry, thank you for coming on, man. I know you and you know what? I'm not going to go into that, but thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. So if you guys are new, please hit that subscribe. Please hit that like. We're on the road to 1,600 subscribers, so help me get there. And I'll catch you all tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. I'm doing a live stream of the Sixers press conference for James Harden and Paul Millsap. MK headlines tomorrow at 5:30, and Sixers and Celtics at 7:30. So be on the lookout for that, guys. I'll catch you all later. Catch you all later, guys. And peace.